Ladies and gentlemen, I have the one, the only. It's Lowko. Thank you so much for joining me, man.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we got Lowko up early. He says he's awake anyway, but man, I just don't know how you do it. Bright and cheerful, and it's what, 8 in the morning there?
Yeah, it's about to be 9. I mean, I live an old man's schedule is what a lot of people, at least in Twitch chat, say. Like I like to go to bed pretty early and I like to get up pretty early, so it's fine.
Nice, man. I wish that I was on that life. Maybe one day.
hmm
So, before I put any of my ideas into your brain, how do you describe what it is that you do?
So that's a question I get every once in a while, right? And I have to be very careful answering it because I used to say like, "Hey, I stream myself on the internet, and I have a camera and I have a microphone and a chat," and people get the wrong idea very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, so generally speaking, whenever people ask now, I try to say that I make content, especially on YouTube. That seems to be where most people are familiar. But in truth, I spend a lot more time on Twitch these days than I do
Mm.
on YouTube. Well, I mean, I still do YouTube as well every day, but um, probably about twice as much on Twitch than I do on YouTube. Anyways, yeah, I make videos about video games, right? So mostly Starcraft 2 for many years, but I try to mix it up, especially on Twitch over the last few years, especially.
Yeah, awesome. So, what kind of first drew you into StarCraft?
Um, so I remember back in 2010, I think this was early 2010. Maybe it was 2009. I'm not entirely sure, but I saw this interview on Dutch television with Grubby. And this is a long time ago. This was about Warcraft 3. And at the time, I had never heard of esports at all. So I'd never
Hmm.
actually, heard anything about that. And he talked about the fact that he had been a pro gamer for many years and that he's been winning tournaments and traveling the world. So I was like, okay, this seems pretty awesome. So at the time, I ended up buying Warcraft 3. And then I realized that the beta of StarCraft 2 was just about to begin. So I ended up pre ordering the game. And I think I got into the second phase of the beta of Wings of Liberty.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's how I started playing then.
Nice, very cool. That's definitely like a unique story, right? That's not one that I've heard. Very cool. So, I mean, you've kind of been doing streaming. You've been doing YouTube for a very long time. By the way, I did go back and listen to the interview that you did with Zombie Grub at 2018 BlizzCon. So I want to I'm
Mm.
gonna pull on some of those threads, but I don't want to rehash. Obviously, that's a fantastic interview. And I want to kind of give the respect that that content deserves. Um, yeah, I mean, how long has it been now? You've been in the game for a minute.
Yeah, so I did it for fun for well, I still do it for fun right now, but I did it for fun, especially, I would say like between like 2008 probably. And then I think I've been doing it full time for like, I don't know, like 3, 4 years.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been a little while, but before then, I mean, I did it for a very long time just because I enjoyed it. So yeah,
Yeah.
since I started my YouTube channel in 2008. So
Hmm.
it's been a while.
Very cool. So, what was sort of that evolution from hobbyist guy posting, I think in that interview you say it was RuneScape videos originally, right?
Yep.
I'm posting RuneScape videos on YouTube, and then eventually like you're making content full time, and like you posted, I think it was 2017, like, hey, bought a house. Like, I mean, this is like an amazing progression, right?
Yeah. So I did it for a very long time just for fun, right? So I started like I said like you said with RuneScape. And the idea at the time was just literally to just share videos with friends, right? So back in the day, I used to play that game a lot. I was quite good at the game, so I figured, you know what, I want to share this with someone. YouTube happens to be the best place where I can press upload and just get it out there. Um, just like most people treat, say for example, like Daily Motion or all of those other like video upload places.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't like a YouTube partnership program or anything like that either. I don't think anyone was making any money on YouTube, so it was very different. Like I basically just wanted to share videos with friends and certain ideas that I had. Like sometimes, when you want to point out something and you can't do a screen share directly because I think at the time there was like TeamViewer or something where you both
Mm.
had to have it installed and then you could share your monitor and stuff. It was just a pain to do. So yeah, that was the idea behind it. I just tried to just tried to share some videos with people, and then over the years, um, I didn't play RuneScape anymore, so I decided to start making some StarCraft videos as well. And initially, I don't know if my first Starcraft video had my voice in it. Um, I had to take a couple of them offline because of copyrighted music and stuff, and
Mm,
that's also
yeah.
why the RuneScape videos aren't up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just started slowly, I guess, gaining some momentum in that. Like I really enjoyed making the videos, and started regularly doing it as well. And then at some point, things went quite well, so I figured, hey, I maybe I would try and do this full time. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a
Yeah.
couple
Very
years now.
cool. So in terms of, just speaking about StarCraft, kind of in isolation, do you have sort of specific goals that you're chasing within StarCraft, or are you kind of just happy to like, do your thing, ladder some, make some awesome content? Do you kind of feel like you're like striving, or is it more like I can kind of enjoy what I've built? What is the emotion like?
So I used to set goals, I think, more specifically for like ranks in StarCraft 2.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out, especially um, when I was very close to those goals, like say I wanted to reach, I don't know, 5.8k MMR or something, right? Like I've
Mm-hmm.
never been
Mm-hmm.
there, but hypothetically speaking, say that would be the goal. Um, I found that once I got closer to it, I would just get more and more frustrated when I wouldn't get there.
Yep.
And especially if you're trying to stream regularly, I can't really like go live for 2 games, right? And then say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's a terrible ladder day. I can't keep playing. Like this is a bad idea because my
Yeah.
ladder ranking is going down. So I think at some point that was indeed like something I aimed for. These days, my main goal is just to try and make good content.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want to obviously maintain at least like a decently high level in the game as well, so I can at the very least explain what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, I'm still very competitive in the sense that I try to, win as much as I can. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, like main focus definitely is making content, but
Mm-hmm.
still want to be at least decent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So I mentioned earlier, you sort of like posted on Twitter like big life landmark, bought a house. This is obviously some years ago now. Congratulations, first of all. It's amazing.
Thanks.
But second, like, how does that feel? Does that feel like, you know, big sort of like life accomplishment? Did you fund all of that off of sort of day job money, or was this content money that kind of got you to this life position?
So it's actually like it's a bit of a strange story, right? So
Mm,
um, while I was studying in university, I lived at my parents' place,
hmm.
and basically I went straight from living at my parents' place to living here, which is
Yeah.
yeah technically my home. It was a weird situation though because I tried to like get a place to rent for a
Hmm.
while, but in the Netherlands it's a little bit strange when you're trying to rent a place and you're self-employed. And I reached out to a couple of different places, and they were like, no, 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 since you don't have steady income, like maybe you can pay for a couple of months in advance, but I mean, we can't accept. Like, I even offered at some point to pay for a year in advance just so I could live
Oh
somewhere.
wow.
And
Yeah.
they were like, no, no, we can't do that because it's just not reliable, and any place that's out for rent is just immediately given to someone else, right? So at some point, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna try and make an appointment at a bank and see what the options are.
Yeah.
And essentially, the way it works, if you're self-employed over here, like you have to provide income statements for the last 3 years.
Hmm.
Um, and they were like, okay, cool. Like you can rent, like you can get this much, and
Yeah.
we advise you to get this much, and yeah, no problem. So I was like, oh, okay, perfect. I guess if I could skip the step of renting,
Yeah.
that'll do just fine. Like I had some student loans at the time as well. Um, I mean, when I say some, I know some Americans are listening to this and are like, okay, like 50K. No, it was like a couple thousand euro, and that like,
Sure.
but that was really about it. So they were pretty straightforward when it comes to that kind of thing. And I mean, at least in hindsight, right now, I mean, I don't know how it is over there, but housing market over here has become an absolute meme.
Mm.
Things are going through the roof right now, so I'm pretty pretty glad I ended up taking that step. I was very nervous about it though, because obviously, what those people that I tried to rent from were saying, like, hey, it's not stable income that you have. Like that is very true. Obviously, every
Yeah.
month is a little bit different. Um, but yeah, so far they've been working out just fine.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You kind of mentioned the housing market. I've got my best friend actually who I've known my whole life is going through it right now. He and his wife are in the process of selling a home and buying a home, and it's so funny because like you can't win with it, right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
the prices are really high, and at least here it's they booked up all of their appointments to sell in like a heartbeat, but then now they
Yeah.
have to find a house So it's like,
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
you get
okay,
it on
yeah.
one end or the other.
And then you
Um,
have to like sit somewhere temporarily. Like that doesn't
yeah,
sound very fun.
better to just like stick with one, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really like. Maybe if something pops up at some point, I'll move. But I'm happy where I am right now for sure.
Yeah, man, that's so funny. You almost got like sort of forced into it though. You got like you
Yeah,
got to skip a step just because they made it so cumbersome. Have
yeah.
you have
It's strange. I don't know.
Yeah, have you had other experiences like that where sort of like the rules of the world or the expectations that people have like don't match up to sort of you have a very modern day job, right? Which is
Hmm.
it's just not something that existed before. And as you say, like there's things that come with it that are, look sort of weird, like okay, you don't have a stable income and it's like, okay, you're obviously doing fine. You obviously can afford to pay for a place to live, but like the traditional systems look at you and go, I don't know about this character, like has that kind of happened to you anywhere else in life?
Yeah, so I found that whenever I explain to people that don't really know what YouTube and Twitch are,
Hmm.
when I explain what I do for a living, I've noticed they either assume I'm a millionaire, which I'm not, or that my parents pay for everything. Like it's
Yeah.
very little in the middle of things, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, it's yeah, it's a little bit strange. Like I don't really understand what's going on there either. But I mean, it used to bother me a little bit whenever people used to think that way. But over the years, I've come to realize that it'll probably get better over time, right? People will
Mm.
become more and more familiar with it, especially like even if you just compare it to like 3 years ago, I think a lot more YouTubers, for example, are just on Dutch television, right? They
Hmm.
have their own television shows and like other things that are happening there as well. So I think a lot more people are just familiar that it's even an option. But especially a
Yeah.
couple years ago, it was just yeah, it was weird to explain to other people. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just it's like if you're i- i- any job where you're self-employed, right? It's not gonna have the most stable income.
Hmm.
It's just kind of how it is. If you don't work for a
Sure.
salary, it's just yeah. So I've never really viewed it very differently than that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I apologize for like I'm gonna probably jump around on you a bunch during this interview,
No
and I do
worries.
it to
No worries.
everyone. I'm just a total disaster as a person. Um, so okay,
Oh,
you
totally
you
fine.
mentioned kind of finishing university. What did you get your degree in again?
So I finished it in the sense that I didn't finish my degree.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, gotcha.
I studied business admin,
Yeah.
um, and it was a course very much so focused on like it was called small business and retail management, and the
Hmm.
entire idea behind it was to help people that want to
Hmm.
become self-employed, right? So that was the entire idea behind it,
Yeah.
and I did that. Well, it was technically a 4 year course, but I did it for like 6 years
Uh huh.
because I was very busy making videos and doing other things, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, at some point I realized this isn't very sustainable anymore because I was making a lot of content. I was trying to do live streaming as well, and yeah, it wasn't a very good idea for me to continue doing all of that. So I had to give
Right.
something up, and I talked to it actually. I talked about it with my dad at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, you should give up school." I'm like, "What? Really? That's what you're gonna say?" Like, I did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, you got an opportunity here right now. Like, you don't have any kids, you're not married, you don't have like any responsibilities. Like,
Hmm.
um, and in hindsight, like I can imagine as well. I don't think I thought about it this way at the time, but in hindsight, like if I wouldn't have given it a shot, right, to
Mm.
try and do this whole thing full time, and that opportunity would have passed because I studied for like another year, that would have really sucked, right? Like if
Yeah.
I would be sitting there right now at like a quote unquote regular job, and I'd be thinking, oh my god, what if I just took like a year to give it a try, right? So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, very very cool. And in a sense like you did sort of graduate from it, right? Like obviously the things
Mhm.
that you were learning worked and you
Yeah,
are now self-employed. So it's
yeah, exactly. Like that's what my thought process was as well. It's like okay, yeah, if I like my goal going to that course was to try and at the very least do something that I enjoy doing for a living, right? I wasn't sure what that was at the time.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I got what I came for, right? So sure, I can stick around and finish it as well, and then get the bachelor's degree, and I can put that on my resume. But I don't know if people really care that much.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
Maybe a little bit, but
So talking kind of just about your Starcraft content, you are diversified into so many things, man. I mean, I originally remember discovering you when I was like, okay, I just need like a guide for like a basic build order. This is before I ever even was brave enough to ladder. I was playing with my girlfriend. We're like yelling across the house to each other, and just trash talking and whatnot. She's like, well, I don't know what to build. I'm like, well, I don't know Zerg stuff. And I mean, at the time I didn't know Protoss stuff either, but don't tell. So I type into YouTube like how basic, Zerg build order, and here's Lowko, and he's cheerful and he's happy. He's like, all right, everybody, gonna make this simple for you. Do this, and that was like really really fun for us at that time. To have something very approachable. So obviously the guides are a big, piece of your content. You've got casting stuff. You've got, ladder streaming. Do you have like a favorite amongst these? Do you kind of love them all? How do you think about, mixing and matching all of that?
Um, I think I enjoy the cast the most these days.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard a very similar story actually from lots of people that at some point they just tried to get better in StarCraft and
Mm-hmm.
they started watching those guides and those guides are still out there. Like some of them are a bit outdated, right? Because
Sure.
they've been recorded years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, like if you want to go for a basic roach push, right? Like say something 1-1 with roach speed, I mean that's
Mm-hmm.
still going to be relevant. Nothing's really changed that much.
Right. Yeah.
But I've also noticed that most viewers, I don't know if you still play yourself, but most people they played at some point, and nowadays they either don't have time anymore, or it's too
Mm.
stressful to play, or whatever, and they
Mm-hmm.
prefer watching instead.
Yeah.
Um, so while initially on the YouTube channel with the StarCraft videos, I noticed that especially like the guides did really well. Over the years, I found that the guides do
Mm.
much less well,
Mm-hmm.
and the video casts about either crazy programs or just really long games or whatever, right? Like those in general do much better.
Interesting. Huh.
It's a bit of a different change over time, yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that that's kind of consistent across both Twitch and YouTube, or is it kind of different in each place?
I don't really cast too much on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe that's something I should do as well. I think one of the reasons though is that like if you look at other YouTube channels as well, they try to or they tend to like upload like a lot of casts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I get to like have the luxury, I guess, of picking and choosing what games I want to be covering, right? So
Yeah.
I try and cover only the best matches, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that makes it a little bit easier, I think, as well.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So then what is the workflow around that? Because I imagine, as you are looking through, whether it's, gosh, what, pro games were played or what viewer submissions do I have? I mean, that could be very work intensive. Like, do you have, moderation staff helping with this? How does that work?
Yeah, so I actually have quite a lot of people these days on Twitch chat just helping me out picking games.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asking in the videos for quite some time as well. Like, if you have an awesome game of StarCraft that you've seen, please let me know. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
easiest way is Twitter, right? So I always get people like reaching out to me and mentioning, "Hey, this series was awesome," or "This game on Death Aura, or whatever was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You should go check it out." And generally speaking, for most events, it seems like the replay packs are still available.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so generally speaking, what I end up doing is just loading up the replay and I'll cast it. And if I think, okay, it's not a very good game, I won't be posting it to the channel.
Mm.
I'll just delete it. And yeah, if it is a good game, I'll post it. But over the years, I think a lot of people have also found like what an actual good game is. You know,
Ah,
like
yeah.
like every once in a while, I still get a game that's extremely one-sided, and you're like, okay, well, you're just a massive, I don't know, fan of Scarlet or whatever, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
you just want to see her absolutely trashing everyone, and that happens. But yeah, I usually like I back in the day I used to have to cast more games before I could actually post something to YouTube, but these days it's become pretty straightforward.
Awesome. Yeah. So essentially it's a matter of you kind of sit down, you've got sort of your helpers, they've said, "Hey, look, these are cool things that you should look at." And this is you offline kind of just casting, in your home studio, and then you sort of take what you get and maybe you go, okay, that one wasn't that hype, but these other seven that I did, those are great. You kind of square them away for YouTube and then just
Exactly.
schedule uploads.
Yep, pretty much. Well, I don't actually do like a lot of batching when it comes to the YouTube videos.
Oh, okay.
I tend to record, like for example, I haven't made a video for today yet,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna do that after this, and then I'll be posting it. Like I tried to do multiple casts in one day, but I found that I try to put a lot of energy into the videos, and if I do like 4 in a row, I'm just absolutely exhausted, and
Mm,
I can't stream anymore, and usually in the 4th one, I'm gonna be stumbling over my words, and it just
sure.
I don't know, it's not as much fun.
Hmm.
So, yeah, sometimes I do schedule in advance, but usually only whenever I have to go anywhere or if there's, like, an event coming up and I'm not at home or if, like, it works out better that way, but I tend to
Hmm.
enjoy, making a content for that specific day and just uploading it. Yeah.
Wow,
It's
very cool.
theoretically, like, a little bit more, like, risky maybe, but I found that over the years, it really doesn't matter too much.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So then if you got, partway through a replay and you're like, ooh, this game is actually just a stomp, like I don't like my cast or whatnot, you would just, nix that one, grab the next replay and get something good to upload that day?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so sometimes, for example, especially, like, the first minute, it takes me, like, I don't know, 20 attempts to get it right, right? But,
Right.
like, it depends on how early it is in the morning. I don't know if it's my caffeine levels or what it is, but, um, yeah, sometimes, like, it just I keep stumbling over my words, like, I always try to prepare at least some information about,
Hmm.
the player's history or their illegal lag ranking or how they've done recently or whatever, right? Um, and especially, like, if I have, like, a couple of things I wanna talk about, I tend to start stumbling over my words, so I'm
Mm.
not entirely sure how that works, but sometimes, yeah, it does take me a couple of attempts before I can really get going, and indeed, like, if I think, "Okay, this game sucks," like, I really don't wanna post it, um, yeah, I won't.
Yeah, makes sense. Very cool. Yeah, this stuff is so interesting to me. As a person who's like tried my hand at moonlighting, making content after the day job is over and stuff. I have mostly talked to people who are sort of very much Twitch live streaming first, right? And
Mhm.
that's what they think about, and that's what they do. And then if they're doing YouTube at all, it's okay, I exported this VOD and that was it, right? Maybe I made a cool thumbnail if you're really going for bonus points.
Put an
And
arrow on it, right.
yeah, and so I don't know enough about this, and I just want to like mine
Mhm.
information from you now because I've got the
Sure,
expert in
no,
the
go
room,
ahead.
right? Um, so yeah, I mean, have you had to invest a lot of time into sort of just like your workflow? So I imagine like okay, I look at your YouTube, right? And everything's branded very consistently, right? You've got your nice like Lowko logo in the corner. You've got some outlandish picture of like, oh my god, like how did he survive these banelings? Doctors hate him, like it's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
so is it like Photoshop template and you kind of are able to stamp these things out pretty quickly? Like how did you have to like work hard to get to that point?
Yeah, so before I actually did any, StarCraft 2, I'm trying to think exactly when this was, but, basically, when I was younger, I used to do a lot of web design. So before I
Hmm.
did, this whole thing full time, like, basically my job or my side job or whatever you wanna call it while I was studying,
Hmm.
I did a lot of web design, and I always enjoyed making stuff in Photoshop, and I did, like, some HTML and CSS and WordPress and all that. So I knew how to use Photoshop,
Yeah.
which I think helped quite a lot. Usually these days, like making a thumbnail, it just like usually I end up rendering the video, right? I edit the video, I render it out, and then while it's rendering, I make the thumbnail. So
Hmm.
that takes like, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes. Um, Truth be told, though, with the whole like YouTube titling and the YouTube thumbnails, that's probably the part of it I enjoy the least
Mm.
because you're almost forced into clickbaiting.
Ah, yeah.
Because like the more you clickbait, like it's very obvious. Um, I don't know exactly how many subs I'm at right now, right? But if your click through rate is like 1% on a thumbnail, that's really bad.
Mm.
So if you can get a click through rate of 2%, right, that literally doubles the amount of views and therefore
Yeah.
doubles the amount of revenue. So you're very much so forced into, well, you're not forced, but you're kind of supposed to do that clickbaiting
Hmm.
at least a little bit. So I tried to not do it too much. Like I could go, way over the top and make it, but you still want to keep people thinking for a little bit, right? Like
Hmm.
if you see a thumbnail, you still want to be thinking like, oh, is this? Wait, what's going on? I think yesterday's thumbnail, for example, said like who's cheesing who or something
Mm.
like that, And if
Hmm.
someone looks at that, they're like, If they spend more than like a split second on that thumbnail than they do on the other thumbnails
Yeah.
from other videos that are recommended to them, that's probably good for me. So yeah, I don't really enjoy the titles and the thumbnails too much,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean you
I,
kind of have to. It's part of the deal, I guess.
I'm grinning because that specific thumbnail that you referenced, like I did stare at it and go, okay, yeah, wait, what is happening in this game? Right? Like I looked at that earlier tonight. Um,
You're
yeah,
you're
that's
like if you go to YouTube.com, you're like bombarded with like two dozen different images, right? So if
Uh-huh.
you that's also the idea behind the arrows that I've been putting on the well, now every
Oh.
Starcraft creator does it. But just to try and grab your attention for just a little bit longer. Like
Mhm.
if I can guide your attention through the thumbnail with anyways, it's just something I was testing for a bit, and it seems to work. But now everyone's doing it. So.
It's so interesting. I mean, to me, this feels very sort of classically you in the sense that, like, okay, you're doing this because it's like, yeah, it's how the game is played, but you don't necessarily love it, like that you kind of have to do this thing. It seems like it feels a little bit like disingenuous to you. I guess I appreciate that you're torn by that, but also like, go get that money, man.
Yeah, like in a way, like TikTok has got it figured out much better, man. Like you don't even
Mm,
have to do a thumbnail there. You don't have to do a title either. You just scroll through it. I don't
mhm.
know if YouTube is ever gonna go in that direction, but I do hope at some point they put less emphasis on the title and the thumbnail. Because honestly, like at some point, it sometimes feels like I really felt like this a couple years ago, especially where like the content itself mattered far less than the title and the thumbnail.
Mm,
Um,
mhm,
Essentially, like YouTube changed at some point from paying for like views essentially to paying to like minutes watched.
mhm,
So these days it's more important that people actually watch the videos.
mhm,
um, but I don't remember exactly when this was, but it really felt like at some point, okay, like all you need to do is just get someone to click the video, and that's
mm,
all that really matters.
yeah.
And that whole game just seemed kind of lame to me, right? But yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
you gotta do it.
Right, yeah. It's interesting. I know this is definitely something that I remember you've kind of been outspoken about in the past, like Twitter in particular. The idea of like the way that different things in tech and in games are interacting with us as humans, right? So like I remember many years ago a dialogue around loot boxes, and I was wrong in
Mm.
that dialogue, and you told me I was wrong, and I'm glad for it because I realized.
Oh, did I? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, you told me off. I was being a jerk. Um,
I don't remember that. Sorry if I was being an ass, but yeah.
no, 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 no. You were just like, I don't think you get it. And I was like frustrated in the moment, and then I like went and read about it more. I'm like, yeah, he's right. Okay.
Oh, I don't
Uh,
remember that tweet.
no,
Yeah,
you were
okay.
you were very polite. Um, but yeah, it's clear to me that you think about this stuff a lot, right? And you're in a very interesting position because on the one hand, it's your livelihood, and on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but I don't like the way that this thing works. I don't like the way that YouTube is structured, right? Like, how do you exist in that tension? I feel like it would just make me tear my hair out.
Um, I mean, it's so okay. So sometimes here's a good example, right? Sometimes I will cast a really good series or a
Hmm.
really good game. I don't know. It's Serral versus another top level. I don't know. Say it's Maru or whatever, right? It's this epic, drawn out game, 45 minutes. What do you title a video like that?
Mm,
If it's just a standard game, right? It's easy to title something where someone's doing a proxy hatch or someone's doing, I don't know, something super aggressive or like something out of the ordinary. But when it's like a stock standard game between two players at the highest level, what do you even title it?
yeah.
Um, so sometimes it can be a bit of a frustration for me as well, where I'm like, well, I really want people to check out this game. Like I casted this sick game between Clement Showtime last week, and yeah, that one actually, compared to other videos, didn't do as well as it probably should compared to the
Mm,
quality of the game.
hmm.
I mean, it still got a lot of views, but
Sure.
it's just funny how I don't know, like you're almost forced into that like clickbaiting, and I mean, I try and not do it too much, but yeah, it's not really too frustrating to me either. But I
Hmm.
do think about it quite a bit. I do think that over the years that will come, people will probably start to realize that it's kind of stupid,
Hmm.
and I think that YouTube also doesn't really benefit from it too much.
Hmm.
Like the entire idea for YouTube, right, is that people spend as much time on their website as possible.
Right.
Um, so as long as they can reward people for watching, you know, videos, right, or at least like if videos are viewed for a longer amount of time and they can recommend them properly, I don't think
Hmm.
it's something that necessarily has to stay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it's, I mean, as you point out, there are, emerging forms of media, right, that don't do this, right? TikTok exists, and it's just like, hey, here's a like funny thing that plays, and there you go. Like
Hmm.
that's all it is, right? So yeah, I feel like, especially if we have creators like you who are in these, these forms of media making stuff, right? That like, it almost like pulls the moral compass in the good direction. So I hope
Mm.
for like the brighter future, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. Like, but my channel is so small in the grand scheme of things, right? But uh,
I you
like
say
for
that.
StarCraft, it's I guess a relatively big channel, but I mean, there's I don't know how many channels there are right now with over 1 million subs, but it's tons of them. Like I used to know
Mm,
every single channel that had 1 million subs, and right now it's like I come across a channel sometimes, and it's like it's got like 10 million subscribers, and I've never
oh
heard
yeah,
of it.
jeez.
So yeah, but yeah.
Interesting. So then I guess you are sort of studying what these other people are doing or were at the time. Like if you know are able to rattle off like here are all the big YouTube channels. Like is that something that takes up a big piece of your brain? Do you feel like you need to do that, or is that just something that you kind of like nerd out on? Is like this is fun for me kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually find myself watching a lot more YouTube videos than I do Twitch streams.
Hmm.
Um, so personally, I like to like follow along at least with some of the bigger channels, but I
Hmm.
mean, these days I've kind of given up on that as well. Though, like I don't really want to stay up to date for too long because it's just I don't know. Like there's so many out there, right? Like there's so
Yeah.
many creators out there these days. So I mostly follow the channels that I like there, and I do check out what they're doing and what they're talking about. But interestingly enough, I don't really follow a whole lot of gaming channels, which is maybe a bit strange. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we all have like just diverse interests outside of just like, oh, I love StarCraft, right? So like I
hmm
know, for example, you're very into fitness. What other sorts of things are kind of big outside of, gaming for you?
I follow quite a few bonsai channels. Like I
Oh
like
yeah.
bonsai trees quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
I have a bunch of channels about watches that I like to check out. Just
Mhm.
wristwatches. I know these are like old man's hobbies, but that's that's the stuff I've been interested in recently. But also a lot of like I don't know channels dedicated to like productivity and just
Mm.
trying to organize things and yeah just getting stuff done.
Mhm.
I always
Very
enjoy
cool.
that. Like, I can have a look right now. Actually, what's even up there? Like, YouTube seems to be quite good at determining what you want to watch.
Oh yeah, they figure out who you are real quick, man.
hmm
they've got they've got the best people on that.
Yep. Yeah, I've got MKBHD in there as well, right? Like, I think that's what pretty much every. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but it seems like
No, I'm not.
most people that are into games are. Okay, he makes tech videos basically.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, yeah, there's some fitness stuff in there as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, just a variety of things really.
Very cool. And we, not old man, classy. We want to
Oh, okay,
always
sure.
brand it, in the best possible light.
All right, I'll take it. Sure.
Very cool. So, how much of this, the Loco Empire, do you attribute to sort of, the formal training that you did get in this sort of university program that you mentioned, and how much of it do you feel like, is natural talent versus like stuff you had to figure out by doing it wrong and then learning?
I think it's a lot of that, a lot of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you go back to like older videos, I can't personally watch them. Like if you check out the videos that I think the first video on my channel right now is from like 2012 or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's super painful for me to listen to. And even like videos from like 3 years ago or something, I'm listening to it and I can't. So maybe at some point I'll listen to my videos that I'm putting out right now and I think, oh my God, this stuff is painful. Like, why did I ever upload that? So a lot of it is trial and error for sure. Um, I guess I was lucky in a sense that with the course that I did, I could do pretty much all of the projects that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, say for example, I would have to do like a sales project or a marketing project or like basically all of the classical like business admin things. I could do
Mm-hmm.
that all for the Lowko TV channels. So that was quite helpful.
Yeah.
Um, but most of it is just trial and error and doing it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel like your hard work shows. Like when I look at, I kind of mentioned the consistency earlier, in terms of, obviously we talked ad nauseum about thumbnails, and I'll stop bugging you about them. But little things like, um, even your intros, right? Your intros for casts, like you have a very like distinct way that you do it, and it's like pretty much always the same in each of them, right? Like,
It's been a touchy subject recently, though. I've
oh,
been
has
changing
it?
it a little
Oh,
bit.
oh
Yeah, this is in
no.
the comment section. This is going really strong. No, I've been changing the intro for a little bit, and some people hate it, some people like it. It seems to be a point of debate. No, sorry, but go on.
Interesting. No, no, boy, and they'll let you have it in the comments too. That's a whole other topic. I don't even know if we want to go there.
That's fine.
Oh man. So I'm curious again, like, and I know I keep going back to like the Twitch versus YouTube thing, but it's just so interesting to me. Like, I, you obviously like have this really big community built up in both places, and that kind of can sort of merge and do interesting things when you think about like spaces like Twitter or Discord, where folks who maybe only watch you on YouTube, maybe they watch you on Twitch, maybe they watch you both, or what have you, can interact. Have you given much thought to like sort of growing a community and how those spaces overlap and sort of what that looks like?
Yeah, so I try and think about that quite a lot. Especially like, with what I do for a living, right? It's tricky to say where things are going to be at, say, 10 years from now, right? Like it's
Mm,
probably going to be mostly the same a year from now, but there can always be like even something as stupid as like a law change that will determine all of a sudden that like
yeah.
broadcasting X is no longer allowed or whatever, right? I always try to at the very least make sure that I'm not just posting in one place.
Hmm.
So this is especially something I've been trying to do over like the last half year or so, where I've been trying to post, for example, like highlights from the stream to my Instagram page, and I've been
Hmm.
posting some of them to Twitter and to Facebook as well. And I've been trying to guide people to, especially in like the YouTube videos, to my second channel. So I started a second channel for other games too. So I'm not really like too reliant on just one thing.
Hmm.
Because it's always felt to me that like at any point, I don't know, like if YouTube decides today that like Starcraft videos are too aggressive and therefore the video game should not be monetizable on YouTube,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Like they could literally make that decision today, and there's
Hmm.
nothing I can change about that, right?
Right.
Um, so I've always been trying to like I really enjoy making content, and right now the best places to post that for me, at least in like long format, are on Twitch and then on YouTube. But maybe
Hmm.
one day that will change, and I'll have to go somewhere else. But I don't necessarily want to be tied down to like one place and one place only, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like just good business sense, right? I mean, you especially when you're in kind of the wild west, right, of an industry, you have to be thinking about
Hmm.
things like that. And I mean, we've seen, everybody was, super scared recently about DMCA, and that was a big deal. And who's going to get, lose their whole Twitch channel over it, and all this stuff,
Hmm.
right? So very much a valid concern, I feel. Speaking on kind of that second YouTube channel, you've definitely been working in a lot of variety. And I'm just curious kind of like how you think about approaching that. I feel like it's touchy in StarCraft. People are like, oh, you Loco, you spent 10 minutes playing this Steam game, like I hate you forever. It's like kind of weird almost.
It used to be weird. Yeah, it used to be weird when I first started doing it. I feel like I missed out on almost like a decade worth of good games coming out because like when I first started playing StarCraft, like I've always had this, right? I had it with RuneScape and with World of
Hmm.
Warcraft, and I had it with like all kinds of games where I'm really playing that and I'm playing that alone. But especially over the last few years, I've found out that there's other good games as well. This is crazy, I know. There's like a lot of good games that people have produced over the years. So I've been playing a lot of variety there. So I've been doing about probably about 50% StarCraft and then 50% other games.
Hmm.
And in a way, like once again, this comes down to not being tied to like one location and one
Sure.
video game in this way, right? So I don't necessarily want to be, like say for example, 2 years from now, StarCraft 2. Like I know that this is a touchy subject as well, and maybe we shouldn't get into that too much, but
No,
uh,
it's fine.
yeah, like imagine if StarCraft 2 is just watched by 10% of the viewers that are watching it right now, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it would kind of suck if my like channels would go down as well just because I'm only doing StarCraft. So
Sure.
I've been trying to do a lot more variety in that sense too. So um, yeah, not only is it a lot of fun, and not only is laddering like 6-8 hours of StarCraft 2 pretty much impossible every day. Um, it's also I think smart to like diversify into different video games, and that's like the second channel though. That wasn't really the intention initially, at least. Like
Hmm.
I mostly meant that as a like an archive. So I had like terabytes of footage on hard drives just sitting around of games that I've completed while streaming on Twitch. And yeah, they were just sort of sitting there. So I figured, hey, I may as well post those somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, the channel is not getting a ton of views, but it's slowly growing. Like it's reminding me a bit of the main channel. Like maybe at some point it will generate some sort of revenue. I mean, it's never really been the point, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, it'd be nice if people will check out some other games as well. Um, but I mean, I know that there's especially with the StarCraft community, like there's people that watch Starcraft and that have done only Starcraft for the last 2 decades.
Right.
Uh, and that's fine. But yeah, I've been enjoying it, just having fun, seeing
Hmm.
what comes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that sort of the touchiness of that, like it's definitely still there, but it feels like it's easing up a little bit to where it's like, oh hey, you like StarCraft and Magic the Gathering? Cool, we could be nerd friends in two games. You know,
As
there's
long as
lots of
it's not
those.
League, it's fine. Okay, like that
Right?
seems
Yeah,
to be.
that's League will forever be the touchy one. I think that's like taboo. That's so
Yeah, no,
funny.
true.
Let's see. I just had something slip my mind, so I'm gonna go back to notes here. So I've got
No
lots more
worries.
that I want to ask you. So okay, let's talk about like how do you just fit enough hours in the day to like be like a healthy, physically fit human and run a YouTube empire and do a live stream and
A YouTube empire. It sounds so aggressive, huh?
I gotta make you
Like,
sound good. It's my job.
oh, all right,
That's
fair.
what this is about.
I try to be smart with how I'm spending the day. Um, I do think though for a while that I was doing a little bit too much. So yesterday I did a crazy thing, for example, and I worked only half the day and I didn't stream. This is something that I normally don't do. I've been doing basically the same schedule for like years now, for 6 days a week. And I mean, I think it's okay. It's very sustainable for me right now, but I can imagine like it's different for everyone, right? So, for example, you have guys like Winter that literally streamed more than half of 2020. Like, if you look at his Twitch
Yeah.
hours streamed, it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how he keeps it up. It feels like he does it like he streams literally more than twice as much as me, and I feel like I stream a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so I think everyone has got like a different limit in that sense.
Mhm.
Then there's a lot of creators as well that only stream like 3-4 hours a day or 2 hours a day. Like I know, for example, Day9 has a pretty good schedule that works for him a lot.
Mhm.
But at least compared to other like Twitch streamers out there, he doesn't seem to be live as much as like, I don't know, the biggest streamers at least on the platform.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, I try to usually dedicate the morning to YouTube related stuff, and then the afternoon and the evening to Twitch. So that
Mhm.
seems to be like my general go-to. And usually I try to spend like the first 2 hours or so every day making sure that I'm up to date on stuff, right? And that I take care of my email and that I work out and that I get some food going and you know, just create at least a little bit of balance. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. It sounds like the sort of like segmentation of the day. If like I'm gonna do these things. These are the things that are important to do, and then kind of
Mm-hmm.
just working
Yep.
through it like
No,
that.
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's something I'm playing with just a little bit right now, and it's very difficult for me to have the discipline to be like,
Okay.
okay, that's that 2 hour chunk. You're not gonna get that extra set in that workout because you're out of time. It's time to go work now.
Right.
Like lunch break is over, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Like I found going to bed is the like I guess I'm screwing up your sleep schedule right now, but uh, I found at least myself that like going to bed is like the most important part. Like if I,
Hmm.
it's almost like sometimes I will find myself like scrolling through Instagram and it's 1 in the morning and I realize,
Hmm.
okay, well now all I'm doing is sabotaging the next day.
Yeah.
I'm not really achieving anything by doing this. Um, so yeah, I think that's the big one and that most people struggle with, right? Like you can be busy all day and then at the end of the day you're like, okay, well now I want to just chill and do nothing for a little bit,
Hmm.
and then it's far too late, and then you know the next day is going to be a disaster. But it
Right.
it
Yeah.
happens.
Definitely makes sense. So circling back to, we kind of talked about like, okay, we know StarCraft is like gonna look a certain way for like the next 2-ish years, right? And you kind of mentioned like maybe it's a touchy subject and we don't want to go there. I've kind of gone there with a few of these interviews now, and I've gotten
Okay.
people's takes and stuff on it. So yeah, I'm not shying away from that. I mean, I think at least where I'm at with it is we kind of know next 2 years, good to go. We also know people are like, as you said, there's people who've been watching StarCraft and only StarCraft for 2 decades, and that's the only thing that they want. And God
Hmm.
help you if you mention League of Legends, kind of thing.
Right.
um, so I feel like there's a push and pull there, but also there's a bunch of new RTS games in development, right? So like,
Hmm.
do you buy into this narrative that we're gonna maybe do some kind of transition? Like, if any of these new games are good, do you think it's gonna be like a long tail of like if support gets dropped for like big tournaments, it'll be like people start to fall off. What are you kind of anticipating?
Um, so we know that StarCraft 2's biggest tournaments are fine for this year and then for 2022 as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Katowice 2023 then is probably going to be like where things theoretically end as far as
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard supports go. Now, maybe this is me being optimistic, but I secretly hope that they look at that and they're like, okay, well, this is pocket change for us. Let's fund another year of StarCraft.
Mm-hmm.
Like ESL and GSL and DreamHack and whatnot have been handling this just fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful for us to have a loyal customer base, and if that costs X million per year, I mean that's a lot of money for you and me probably, but yeah, for a big company like. That's nothing, right? Like that's not really
Sure.
something they really have to worry about too much, assuming they think it's money well spent.
Mm-hmm.
So in the back of my mind, like I think that's still a pretty good option that in at the end of 2022 or whatever, they'll look at this and think, okay, maybe right now we're not going to make any money out of RTS, but there's a lot of sense in maintaining a loyal customer base, and that will help us sell future projects.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, maybe that's wishful thinking on my end. Um, it's I think like the tricky part is after that, right? Where like there's a lot of people out there that or not a lot. There's a couple pro gamers out there that make good money, obviously playing the game full time. But then there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people right below that can probably make ends meet, but just barely, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like that group of pro gamers is going to have a very hard time if a lot of those really big tournaments fall out, right? If they
Right.
are no longer around, if you can't pay the bills. I mean, yeah, playing video games for a living is fun and all, but if you can't pay the bills,
Sure.
you can't do much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little concerned that maybe in 2022, especially, quite a few pro gamers will leave, assuming Blizzard does not fund additional tournaments going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that said, I do think there's a lot of potential as well in other upcoming RTS games. Like the Sunspear one seems to be quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially excited about the one that Frost Giant seems to be making.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like those games, especially the one from Frost Giant, are still like I don't know, 5+ years into the future.
Right.
Like they're not going to be coming out anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel like there might be that awkward moment in between games,
Mm.
assuming that
Yeah.
game will be good at all, right? Like we
Sure.
don't know at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel like there might be that awkward moment where there could be a transition and where at some point people will migrate over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me personally, I just want to play the best games out there, right? And
Yeah.
like you said, I do think that the people that have been watching StarCraft for the last 2 decades are not going to stop watching StarCraft over the next couple years either.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, assuming I can keep doing StarCraft, I definitely don't plan on not doing StarCraft. Like,
Yeah.
I love the game, and it's by far my favorite. So I secretly hope that it's going to be around for another decade or so. But yeah, predicting the future is hard, right? Like, we don't really
Sure.
know. But it seems like there's yeah, quite a lot of potential. Like worst case scenario, I guess Sunspear game will not be any good. The Frost Giant game will not be any good, and Blizzard no longer funds any StarCraft 2. Like that would be the worst case scenario, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that is very unlikely.
Yeah, there's too many talented people, right? Like and they
Yeah.
have all of the lessons learned from StarCraft, and they know that like these people, if the RTS is good, like I mean, their worst case scenario, if they can make a good game, is that I watch both StarCraft and their game, right? And I get really hyped, and now I got to figure out how do I slice up the hours of my day to like go here or go
Hmm.
there, right? So it's like the only thing they need to do, the only thing, like it's easy, right, is to
Make a
make a
good
really
game.
compelling, yeah.
It's easy. Just yeah, get it done.
Do you have kind of any thoughts around that? Sort of RTS game design, or it seems like a lot of the narrative right now is about like how do we grow the genre? How do we tackle the accessibility problem? Because we've all been there, you at a coffee shop or whatever. Oh, you're into StarCraft? Somebody sees your hat or your shirt or whatever. Oh, yeah, I used to play that game. It's too hard. Yeah, a lot of respect to you,
Hmm.
man. Like we've
Hmm.
all had that interaction, right? Like, do you have thoughts
Yep.
there?
I think yeah, like lowering the skill floor, right? So creating more accessibility without lowering the skill ceiling is going to be
Hmm.
the really tricky part to tackle. Now I'm not a game designer myself, so I'm not entirely sure, but um, I do think if anyone's going to be able to do it, especially the guys at Frost Giant, like they have some like the guys that worked on Red Alert and Generals and StarCraft and Warcraft, like the old school RTS games. I think if
Hmm.
anyone's going to be able to tackle it, it will probably be them. Um, yeah, it is going to be tricky though. that said, like, I don't really know exactly if it's super necessary either. Because I found at least, like, obviously for them, they would like people to play the actual game, right? But at least for
Sure.
like StarCraft, I feel like there's way more people these days that watch StarCraft than that play StarCraft.
Mhm.
So there's probably a lot of people that are playing co-op right now, right? And that are maybe going through the campaign and stuff. But
Mhm.
at least for like 1v1 specifically, I think there's a ton of people that enjoy StarCraft more when they watch it than when they
Mhm.
play it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's necessarily the biggest issue, but yeah, creating more accessibility is probably the biggest thing.
Mhm. Yeah, that I think is a fascinating perspective. And one that I think is underrepresented right now. I have not heard enough people saying what you just said. And I think it's a really, really interesting point because I've always felt that one of the biggest strengths of RTS is like readability and understandability, even
Hmm.
if I don't maybe know the most about the actual video game. So it's sort of weird, I think, because on the surface level, like I can see the red army is fighting the blue army, and then the red blob starts to kind of get smaller, and like, okay, the blue Marines won, right? Like my brain viscerally can understand this.
Hmm.
Anything more complicated than that, though, and now I'm like getting out the whiteboard and I'm like, drawing boxes and arrows on the TV kind of thing, trying to be, okay, this is why that was important, and this bunker dying
Right.
is real, so there's sort of like an interesting thing there, and I don't exactly know what my point is, other than I think that there's something really crucial there that we have not figured out. And I'm really, really glad that you just said that about sort of, there is this huge population that's like, yeah, I just like to watch it. Like playing it is
Hmm.
stressful. And at the end of a long day, 8-hour day of like working, in my office, I don't want to go home and do that to myself. But I
Hmm.
will definitely, flip on a tournament. Like, maybe we can turn more people into that, right? That type of consumer. And maybe that's a way to sort of grow the genre as well.
Yeah, I feel like so I've talked about this quite a lot actually, especially with people that like to play MOBAs.
Mm,
I found that a lot of people that like to watch StarCraft 2 don't necessarily play the game anymore. But the people that play MOBAs, or sorry, the people that watch MOBA tournaments,
hmm
so like League of Legends, like Dota, all play
hmm
the game as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a pretty big distinction over there because every once in a while, like I like to tune into the Worlds and the
hmm
International or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
And I check out those events and I have absolutely no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
I just see like pretty sparkles flying over the screen.
hmm
And I don't know if maybe people that like play those MOBAs then view StarCraft in the same way as well, but I do
hmm
think StarCraft is a lot more readable.
hmm
Like, for example, I don't really know Warcraft 3 very much. Um, but every once in a while, I like it to check out the tournaments, and it's pretty easy for me to catch on to what's going on and why certain moves are important.
hmm
Maybe that's once again because I've been playing RTS for so long, but I do think there's yeah definitely a lot of people that like to casually watch, especially also with StarCraft though. It's because I think because the average viewer is probably a little bit older.
hmm hmm
Um, so if you played StarCraft 1, you're probably going to be in a scenario now where you might have like a I don't know a family or something and a job to actually keep you occupied with, right? So it's going to
Sure.
be hard to come home and play some ladder games then. But yeah, like you're saying, I think like a lot of people at that point do enjoy watching the game. Like they'll
hmm
probably just yeah, hang out and watch a tournament or two. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I totally get you on the MOBA thing, and I've honestly tried. Like, I've really tried because I always have, friends and coworkers and stuff who are like diehard into one or the other, and yeah, for me, it's the same thing. It's there's a lot of particle effects happening. The casters are screaming. Like a team fight just ended, but I don't exactly really get why or like
Mhm.
what the heck's going on. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that part of that is like really deep character pools, which are kind of inherent to the MOBA genre.
Mhm.
And now it's like there's this encyclopedic knowledge aspect where it's like if I don't know all like 300 champions or whatever there are, right, and like
Yeah, yeah,
all of
and
their
their
abilities,
abilities and everything. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that that's kind of like an interesting thing that that genre does in particular, that like RTS kind of has some of those problems in the sense of like, okay, maybe I need to know like, is a stalker strong or weak against this or that. But again, like there is a visceral understanding when I see that there were 20 stalkers and now there are 5. Like your
Yeah,
brain
it's
can
not
like
that
calculate it.
complex. Yeah, I think StarCraft runs into the problem with spellcasters, especially
hmm
when they
hmm
have like 4 different abilities or whatever, right? Like that can definitely make it hard for people to read. But
hmm
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of potential though still with RTS. Like maybe this is once again me being a little bit biased. But I do think there's a lot of potential there. Like especially if you want to make it more clear for the more casual viewer to watch. Just like imagine if all the StarCraft 2 spellcasters just had one spell, right? Like it would be much
Hmm.
easier already to read at that point. And I think there's a lot of small things that you could do to make it easier to watch, at least if you're a more casual like fan of the game. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, very cool. Well, I have already almost taken an hour of your time. Are you down for a couple of like sort of funsy, like lightning round type questions?
Sure, sure, man. Sure.
All right. Favorite like variety game, like non-StarCraft game that you're just kind of dabbling in right now?
Ooh. Recently, Dyson Sphere program. Fantastic little game. Um, I don't know if you're an engineer by any chance, but if you always wanted to be one, that's the game to go
Ah,
for.
very, very cool. Awesome. Do you have a favorite pro player?
um,
Am I going to get you in trouble with this one?
no, no, no. I definitely do have favorites, but I feel like I have so many.
Hmm.
I was talking to Roddy about this actually at Stay at Home Story Cup, and we
Uh-huh.
both decided that we have some players that we like a lot, but it's mostly like really good StarCraft that we're a fan of. If I had to
Yeah.
pick one, probably Raynor right now.
Yeah.
But it could become Bjorn or Clem or Cyril or I don't know. There's so many great ones. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It's like at any moment somebody could blow your mind with a really cool game. And you're like, okay, yeah, you get the number one slot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For a while there, I was casting so many Bjorn games. I was like, okay, I need to calm down a little bit because it's it's getting a little bit much.
Yeah. Is there anybody who you feel like is really underrated? Is there somebody who you think the scene is sleeping on who's about to get really good or just has been really good?
Like a pro gamer.
Could be anybody. Could be, I mean, if you're like this streamer, more people should watch them. Like that's a fine answer too. Whatever you want.
Um, I've been enjoying the games of MaxPax a lot recently. I
Mm-hmm.
think MaxPax is very good. Like, there's a couple players out there. Like, yeah. Now, obviously, I can't really come up with them very easily. But yeah, there's loads of players out there that are really good, and I feel like maybe this is also due to the fact that I cast a lot of games over and over and over again from the
Mm-hmm.
same players, right? But there's definitely a couple of guys that are up and coming. Like Estrella is very good as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
MaxPax, like I said, is very good. Um, Even like players like Zaun or Chown or whatever you want to say, like however
Nobody
you want
knows
to
how to
pronounce
say
his
it.
name.
It's tough.
Yeah, like nobody really knows anymore at this point, right? Like they're super good. Um, so yeah, there's like a bunch. There's a bunch of pros that I think are definitely up and coming and could easily start smashing tournaments
Mm-hmm.
pretty soon.
Very cool. Favorite matchup to cast?
Zerk versus Taran.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I think that's the classical one. It's like orcs versus humans in a way, you know? It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's the matchup. Well, I mean, I wish mech was a little bit more common these days.
Mm.
It seems like that is not as popular anymore. Maybe with like a small little balance change. Like we see it every once in a while on some maps right now, but like especially romanticized seems to be okay for mech. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, ZVT.
Cool.
ZVT is fun.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Do you have sort of a favorite like build order or composition? It could be like all time. Like you could be like, okay, in early Legacy of the Void era, I liked when people were, the Protosses were hitting this timing. Is there something like that that comes to mind for you?
Um, I'm getting a lot of Zerk. Or I'm giving a lot of Zerk answers so far.
It's
I
okay.
think I think my favorite go to is probably this good old Lingbane Ultra. Lingbane Ultra is just very swarmy. I've always been a fan of just like for a while, like when people were playing Brute Lord Infestor, I thought that was about as little like didn't feel like Zerk to me, like no one was
Mm,
being swarmed at all. It was just sitting back, sitting
yeah,
back, sitting back until you get the slowest army out there. I think Lingbane Ultra is just the Zerk fantasy. Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's good.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, is there anything that I did not ask you that I'm a bad interview because I didn't ask it that you want to
No,
talk about?
nothing that comes to mind, man. No, nothing in particular.
Okay, fair enough. I will ask you one final question then. What is your absolute favorite thing about the StarCraft 2 scene?
I think my favorite thing is probably how passionate people are.
Hmm.
Even though the game, especially if you include StarCraft 1, right? But even if it's just StarCraft 2, it's been around for 11 years. I know lots of people that have literally been playing the game, maybe off and on, or maybe have been watching the game off and on like nearly 2 decades, right? Or
Hmm.
actually, 1998, right? Yeah, no, it's been obviously over 2 decades already. Um, so I think that's amazing. I mean, I didn't start playing Starcraft until Starcraft 2, so I'm maybe a little bit late to the party in that sense, but I don't really see myself not doing anything Starcraft related anytime soon. Like, yeah, it's fantastic. It's really fun.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Well, awesome, man. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Folks, I will let you know behind the curtain here. I kind of messed our time zones up. I normally try to use one of those like websites to be like, here, it's this, and so
It's all good, man. No
poor
worries.
Lowko was scrambling this morning to make it
It's
work
all good.
because
Nah, I wake up early anyway, like we already discussed, right? It's 9, or no, it's 10 in the morning right now. Like, this is
sure.
prime time.
I really, really appreciate it, man. This
Hey,
has
thank
been
you so
so
much for having
fun.
me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I will, get this over onto YouTube. Not with a thumbnail because I'm a scrub, but yeah. And I'll, get all your
Arrows in
socials. Yeah, arrows. Is there anything that you want to promote? Is there anything we should talk about?
Yeah,
Just check.
if you're watching this and you don't know my channels, it's basically at Lowko TV everywhere. So that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Yeah, you can find me on the internet.
Go find him. He's like one of the nicest, smiliest guys. You will love his content.
I'll
Tons of
try.
polish. Yeah, what more can I say? I mean, if you don't love him from watching this interview, I don't know what's wrong with you out there. But yeah, thank you once again, Loco. I'm gonna hide you behind a BRB screen so I can drop a raid here. Yeah, really,
Alrighty,
really
man.
appreciate it, man.
Hey, thank you very